It all started on a night like any other, a Tuesday, I think. Rain was lashing against the windows of my remote cabin, the kind of storm that makes you grateful for a warm fire and a good book. I was just settling in when I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping on my front door. Thump, dot, 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 thump. It wasn't the wind, and it was too deliberate for a falling branch. My heart started hammering against my ribs. Who would be out here, in the middle of nowhere, in this weather? I grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace, my knuckles white, and crept toward the door. Peeking through the small peephole, I saw ... nothing. Just the dark, dripping porch. Annoyed, thinking it was just my imagination, I started to turn away. But then, the tapping came again, lower this time, almost at the very bottom of the door. Slowly, I unlatched the deadbolt and pulled the heavy oak door inward, just a crack, and that's when I saw him. Staring up at me with eyes as big and dark as polished riverstones was a creature I thought only existed in blurry photographs and campfire stories. He was small, no taller than my knee, covered in thick, matted brown fur that was soaked from the rain. He shivered, a tiny whimper escaping his lips. It was a baby Bigfoot to Sasquatch infant, lost and alone on my doorstep. My mind went blank. Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door, lock it, and pretend this wasn't happening. But I couldn't. The look in his eyes, it wasn't wild or monstrous. It was terrified. He was just a child, lost in the storm. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door wider. He flinched, taking a clumsy step back, but I knelt down, keeping my movements slow. "Hey there, little guy," I whispered. "It's okay. You're safe." He just stood there, trembling. So I went back inside and returned with a warm, fluffy towel and a bowl of lukewarm milk. I placed them on the porch a few feet away from him, and then I backed away, leaving the door ajar. For a long time he didn't move. Then, cautiously, he shuffled forward. He sniffed the milk, then lapped it up with a surprising delicacy. Afterward, he clumsily wrapped himself in the towel, peering at me over the fluffy edge. That night, he slept on a pile of old blankets on my covered porch, a tiny, furry bundle against the raging storm. The next morning, the sun was out, and the forest was glistening. I expected him to be gone, returned to wherever he came from. But he was still there, awake, watching me with those impossibly old eyes. I named him Barnaby. It just seemed to fit. Over the next few days, a strange and wonderful routine began. I'd leave out bowls of mashed berries, steamed vegetables, and warm milk, and he would eat them gratefully. He never tried to come inside the cabin, but he was always close by, my little furry shadow. I'd watch him for hours as he explored the woods around my home. He moved with a quiet grace that belied his stocky build. He'd sit and watch squirrels for hours, his head cocked in absolute fascination. He'd gently touch flowers with his large, surprisingly nimble fingers, as if memorizing their texture. It was clear he wasn't just some animal. There was a deep intelligence, a contemplative soul within him. He never made a sound, communicating only with his expressive eyes and subtle gestures. I learned more about the forest in those few weeks with Barnaby than I had in 20 years of living there. He showed me which mushrooms were safe to eat, not by telling me, but by gently nudging the edible ones with his nose and recoiling from the poisonous ones. He led me to a hidden spring with the sweetest, coldest water I'd ever tasted. He was a child of the forest, and he was sharing its secrets with me. I stopped thinking of him as a cryptid or a monster. He was just Barnaby, my friend. One afternoon, I was splitting firewood when I heard a sound that chilled me to the bone. It was a low, resonant call, a deep, guttural sound that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. It was like a horn, but organic, ancient. Barnaby, who was playing with a pine cone nearby, froze. His head snapped up, his ears twitched, and he let out a soft, high-pitched chirp in response. My heart sank. I knew what it was. His family. They were looking for him. The call came again, closer this time. Barnaby looked from me to the direction of the sound, his face a mask of confusion and conflict. He took a few steps toward the trees, then stopped and looked back at me, letting out a small, mournful whimper. I knelt down and looked him in the eyes. As much as I wanted him to stay, I knew he couldn't. He belonged with his own kind in the deep woods where he could be free. "It's okay, buddy," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You have to go. They're waiting for you." He seemed to understand. He shuffled forward and did something that shattered and rebuilt my entire world in a single moment. He reached out and gently placed his large, warm hand on my cheek. He held it there for a second, his dark eyes looking directly into mine. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a thank you. It was a gesture of profound trust and connection, an acknowledgement that our two worlds, so different, had touched for a brief, magical time. Then, just as quickly, he turned and ran. He disappeared into the dense tree line without a sound, a little brown blur against the green. A few moments later, I saw a movement in the shadows of the forest. Two massive, dark figures emerged. They were huge, easily 9 feet tall, their presence powerful and awe-inspiring. One of them, I assumed the mother, scooped up Barnaby in a gentle embrace. She looked in my direction, and for a heart-stopping second, I thought she might approach. But she simply gave a slow, deliberate nod, a sign of acknowledgement, of gratitude. Then, as silently as they appeared, they were gone. I stood there for a long time, the clearing feeling empty and quiet in a way it never had before. My life was forever changed. I had looked into the eyes of a myth and found not a monster, but a friend. I now know that the world is so much bigger, so much more mysterious and magical than we can ever imagine. There are secrets hidden in the shadows, ancient families that move like ghosts through the trees. And sometimes, if you're lucky, one of them might just knock on your door, not for anything you can give them, but for a little bit of kindness in a storm. And that is a gift beyond measure. I still live in my cabin, and every now and then I'll find a perfectly shaped river stone or an unusual, beautiful feather left on my porch. I know who they're from, and I just smile. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's something I've held close for a long time, and sharing it means the world to me. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I'd love to share more of my experiences with you all. Take care and always be open to the magic in the world.